Oh, howdy all, grab yourself a drink, it is time for some Path of Exile discussion. Welcome to day one of the Affliction League. We're currently about 12 hours into the league, and what I wanted to do is go over some of the things that have been discovered so far by players. Firstly though, how did the league launch go? It was a bit of a mess for an hour and 45 minutes until a patch came out. That emergency patch dealt with a number of crashing problems people were having. I only crashed about 4 times, but many people crashed a lot more than I did. Now let's have a look at some of the things that have been discovered so far. Some of these come from data mining, some of them come from player discoveries in-game. Firstly, the drop rate of Sanctum keys, aka Forbidden Tomes, has been discovered. This was discovered through data mining. It was 260 last patch, it is 150 now. A lot's been said about how much inflation was caused by Sanctum just disgorging so many Divine Orbs into the economy in particular, but also Chaos Orbs, Awakened Sextants, a number of other raw currency items. This is going to be somewhat less the case now because Sanctum runners are going to have to outbid other Sanctum runners. We're not going to have a massive excess of Sanctum keys in the Trade League economy. Instead, it's probably going to be closer to the number people want to run. These are likely to be quite a bit more expensive than last league, but they're also not going to be so expensive that they have to be hoarded until you're definitely sure you can win. I'm expecting they'll settle somewhere around the half a Divine Orb mark. Secondly, having played with Oath of the Magi, this notable is part of one of the new Ascendancies. It's something you can get with 2 points, so it's something that you can pick up probably about Act 3 or 4. I think I got it early in Act 4. A lot of people I was speaking to got it in Act 3 or so. This is absolutely busted while you're leveling. 30% increased movement speed if you have boots equipped that have no socketed gems in them. This is even better than it sounds. This is just bonkers. 50% to all elemental resistances if you have a helmet equipped but that helmet has no gems socketed in it. This is also just as ridiculous. Fundamentally, during the acts, this is too strong not to use. I don't think it's going to remain that way at endgame, but one of your first priorities if your league's starting late should be to discover the NPC that grants you the Oath of the Magi. Whether you get it or not is RNG on any particular run into the Wildwood, but just go as far as you can in the Wildwood and eventually you'll find all 3 of the NPCs. It won't take you all that long. It's also not a problem if you sign up with one of the other 2 first. As soon as you find the right one for Oath of the Magi, you can just swap over. 30% increased move speed is just unbelievable. It's like leveling with 7 league steps, except your boots are still providing you with other stats. Your boots are still providing you with life, they're still providing you with resistances, and on top of that, you've got this crazy move speed. Next, all of the remaining high spaces have been found. We have the Manifold Ring, which allows 4 prefixes and only 1 suffix, but the prefixes have 50% increased modifier values. This one is quite good. We have the Helical Ring, which is the opposite of the Manifold Ring. This allows you to have 1 prefix and allows you to have 4 suffixes, but those 4 suffixes are juiced up and they have 50% increased modifier magnitudes. Again, this is potentially very good, especially if you get miraculously lucky rolls, or if you're a really cunning crafter and you can make yourself a monstrous crystallized omniscience ring with this. Next, we have the Composite Ring and the Ratcheting Ring. These I'm not sold on at all. These allow you to get 6 mods on them, and they're all prefixes or they're all suffixes, but the price you pay for that is that you effectively have no implicit. Overall, I'm just not sold on these ones. But then we have the real winner. This is potentially the best thing coming out of Heist at the moment. This is the Focused Amulet. This has an incredibly high top end if you know a lot about crafting. The Focused Amulet has 2 prefix slots allowed and 1 suffix slot allowed as long as it's rare, and has 100% increased explicit modifier magnitudes. It is the same as the Simplex Amulet, except in reverse. Now, prefixes on amulets have a higher top end, and that means that Focused Amulets can potentially be better than the Simplex Amulets can be. There's a lot of ways to go about crafting these, but I think it's going to take a little while until players work out exactly how rare these are. Once we work out how rare they are, then and only then will we be able to work out the best ways to craft these potentially very powerful items. 7 previously unannounced replica items have been discovered. Now 3 of these are the rubbish jewels. Replica Fragility, Replica Powerlessness, and whatever the other one is. Those are just rubbish except in some real corner case scenarios, just like Fragility and Powerlessness are. Most builds never want them, but there might be someone who does. What's really interesting though is Replica Heat Shiver. This thing is pure power. This thing grants you cold resistance and lightning resistance, but then has the key stat, gain 1% of lightning damage as extra cold damage per 2% shock effect on an enemy. So if you can keep a 60% shock on an enemy, then this is going to be 30% of lightning damage added as extra cold. But if you can keep an overshock on an enemy, this could be even better. One thing that's very important to note when you're assessing Replica Heat Shiver, this is going to be massively worse against Uber Pinnacle bosses than it is against everything else in the game. And the reason for that is that the amount that you can shock those bosses is considerably lower than you can shock anything else in Path of Exile. Do keep that in mind. It's going to perform worst when you need it most. That said, the power is here. This is a strong item. Replica Hinakora's Sight is next. This keeps the accuracy from the original, but instead of providing a bunch of evasion rating and a bunch of synergy with suppression, this provides a lot of armor and +1 to maximum all elemental resistances and protects you against maim instead of blind. Pretty solid all-around item, and I can see this being used. Replica Hyri's Ire is next. Instead of being cold aligned and bow themed, this is lightning aligned and it is wand themed. Otherwise, it's pretty much the same item as the original. The original Hyri's Ire is good. This could also be very good. One thing to note though, it doesn't really synergize very well at all with Power Siphon of the Archmage. And that skill gem is going to be my starting point if I decide to play a wand-based attack character that is dealing lightning damage at the moment. Replica Witchfire Brew is next, and I feel like this is a bit of a filler one, just like Witchfire Brew itself. I don't think many people are going to want to use this. Instead of a Despair Curse Aura, it grants a Vulnerability Curse Aura. It's not nothing, but generally speaking, flasks have grown faster than this item has. A lot of us were wondering what the dedication to the goddess was going to do in patch 3.23. The answer is it allows you to modify corrupted gems. So some of the crafts that you receive from the Divine Font at the end of the Labyrinth will be able to apply to corrupted gems, which is not the case for a normal offering to the goddess, or for the gift to the goddess, or for the tribute to the goddess. That is its special prowess, replacing the belt enchants it used to offer. And next we have the item that is replacing the Tower of Ordeals. Those of you that have run the Trial Master since he was returned to the game will know that you needed to collect different ultimatum aspects from different places in the game. So there was a piece that came out of Uberatsuri, there was a piece that came out of Vaal Temple, there was a piece from the Vaal Omnitect in Incursion, and there was a piece that came from Ahuatotli the Blind in the Delve Mines. You combine these together, you no longer get yourself a Tower of Ordeals. Instead, you get yourself a copy of the Adorned. This is a jewel that provides a very wide roll range, 50 to 150%. The wording on this one is very difficult to parse, but what it does is it's up to 150% increased effect of jewels on your character if they are simultaneously corrupted, magic, and not cluster jewels. But there's one more condition on top of that as well. They need to be in your character's passive tree and not inside another item. If it meets all of those conditions, then a magic jewel gets 150% potentially increased effect. This is a very, very large amount, and it will turn, for example, a 40 life jewel that has another useful mod on it into giving you 100 life instead. Or it can turn 8% increased energy shield and 2% mana reservation efficiency into 20% energy shield and 5% mana reservation efficiency. In short, it's pretty good. It applies to your entire passive tree, but this is something that's going to require you to craft jewels in an entirely new way. You're going to be spamming them with alterations, getting them just perfect, and then you might even be double corrupting them. So that's where you get the Adorned. It is from those 4 ultimatum aspects. It'll be a little while until this is available in Trade League. Next we have a couple of filler uniques. The Flawed Refuge has an interesting mod that is mostly detrimental at the moment. 40% of elemental damage from hits taken as physical damage. For most situations, this is going to make you less tanky than you would otherwise be, but there are always corner cases in Path of Exile. The Trickster's Smile is next. This is something that rewards you for being hit by enemies. When an enemy deals elemental damage to you, their resistance to those elements becomes 0 for 4 seconds. So if you can get enemies to hit you and you can endure that, then this is going to provide you with a short period of extra damage, but I don't think many players are going to be interested in that. Next, there's the Untouched Soul. This takes up your entire amulet slot, which is a big price to pay. Otherwise, I could see this being used pretty widely. This is something to go in conjunction with Oath of the Magi, and it provides you with a bonus to life, accuracy rating, mana, or all elemental resistances based upon the colors of empty sockets on equipped items that you've got. So if you're using Oath of the Magi, you could potentially have a 4 white socket helmet, and then that combination is going to give you 122 to all resists. Resists are a boring stat, but you've got to get them somewhere, and this isn't a bad spot for it. We've also had all of the divination cards now spoiled. I See Brothers is one that wasn't known before the league went live. This is a set of 2 cards for 2 fracturing orbs. This is likely to be extremely rare. There are no confirmed drops of this as yet, but it is speculated based upon newly added card tags that have been found in data mined information that this probably drops from the bosses of maps where there are 2 bosses on the map. For example, there's good reason to suspect this might drop from the Strand boss, and if that is correct, then that'll be known reasonably soon. This has a drop restriction of level 68+, which means it can drop anywhere in maps. The next divination card is called Who Asked, And this is going to provide you with an already fractured item, and it is a fractured item that may not be on the right base, but that will have a chase mod locked onto it. This will provide you with a Dictator's weapon. Dictator's is the highest tier of physical percent and accuracy hybrid. So it's an extremely strong mod, and it's one that players often want to have fractured onto a weapon if they're intending to craft a physical DPS weapon. To the best of my knowledge, there are no leads on where this item drops. As for the other divination cards, there is a divination card for a double corrupted Divinarius, and there are some weak leads, aka metadata references inside the game files, that indicate that this might drop from unique heists, and not just one of the unique heists, but potentially from all of them. The last divination card, Eldritch Perfection, is the one that grants a perfect tier Eldritch Influence mod, and this appears to be tied to specific influence monsters, but that is something that I still need to get more confirmation on before I'm willing to call it confirmed. And that's all the discoveries except for one, but I have saved the best one for last. This is the trade site and a search under the Affliction League. This is listings of Hinokora's locks. I've spoken to one person who had a Hinokora's lock drop in the Affliction League. This dropped in Act 6, and it dropped from killing Abrath when he was affected by the League mechanic. The exact mechanics of how these things are dropping isn't known. Omens are definitely dropping from chests inside the Wildwood. Hinokora's locks, more information needed, but they definitely are dropping, and this is probably going to make some Standard League speculators reasonably upset. So that's Hinokora's locks. They are back. They're definitely going to be usable again this league, but I'm expecting that they will be an extreme top-end crafting tool again, just like they were last league. Anyways, that's all I've got for now. If your Varlorbs have uninteresting results, then hopefully Hinokora's lock can fix that.